Hey, what's going on, guys? So really excited to talk to you guys about the difference between a rate and term refinance and a cash out refi. A lot of times people, talk about cash out refinance, and there's a lot of value to that. Obviously, we hear about the BRRRR strategy where you could buy a property, let's just say for $50,000. You put $50,000 into it, you're all in, $100,000, and then it's worth, $250,000, right? Like, I haven't done the math in my head, but I'll pull out my calculator right now. Let's say you could pull out 70% of that, right? So $250,000 times zero point 0.7, that means you could pull out $175,000 and you were all in about 100 grand. Now I know there's some other fees that we're not, talking about, the cost of the, funding the deal or financing the deal, any sort of fees for the refinance, closing costs. But just to keep this very simple, if you bought a property for 50,000, you put 50,000 into it, you're all in 100 grand, it's worth 250, and you could pull out 175, you can see how at least for a gross, sort of cash out margin, you could pull out $175,000 and you're all in like 100 grand. Now, and that's also, by the way, that's $75,000, that would, you'd pay off that 100 grand. Again, there's a couple of fees, but just to keep it very simple, let's just say you pay off that 100 grand, you got $75,000. That is tax free because it's debt. Remember, that $75,000 that you put in the bank wasn't just someone paying you because of a service that you provided or a product. That $75,000 came out of a loan, right? Because you just basically did a cash out refi, and then you paid off the existing debt, but you took out a larger loan because of the value of that property and you being able to basically, take out enough of the new value to cover whatever was on the property in terms of debt, but then there being some, there's a surplus essentially, right? And so that is essentially income you can put in the bank and leverage to continue scaling, etc. But it's important for me to talk about this because I didn't know this. No one told me about a rate and term refinance. Everyone would always talk about a cash out refinance, and there are some things to think about with a cash out refinance. Now, there's probably tons of videos that go super in depth with all this. I'm not a mortgage lender or anything like that. I'm just giving you experience as an investor on actual deals that I've gone through, right? And so, and some of you guys know I talked about on another video how I bought a property for $140,000. I paid a buddy of mine $30,000, so I'm all in $170, and then I, added another 10 grand to what I needed to borrow from a private money lender to cover the cost of closing costs and remodeling, doing a couple things like black light fixtures, LVP, white interior, make it kind of nice. And then the property's worth like 270, 275, right? And so to be able to, do I do a cash out refi or do I do a rate and term? Well, a lot of it depends on kind of what are you looking to do, right? Like if you have enough value, this is my opinion. If you have enough of the new value for it really makes sense to either wait and go through a seasoning period, or it's enough of a cash out for it to make sense to have a larger loan you have to pay off because you're really going to be able to leverage this extra cash to be able to scale your business more, basically take that money and go, buy another piece of property or something like that, then that might make sense. But you have to keep in mind, like I just said, there's a lot of times a seasoning period when you do a cash out refinance because you are borrowing more than what the existing debt is on the property. So you have a larger loan. It's a little bit more riskier. That new lender, they're giving you more money than you really need. So the interest rate is a little bit higher than usually doing a rate and term. So you have a little bit of a higher interest rate. You have usually a seasoning period and you have a larger loan. But there are times where it would make sense to do that. Like I said, if you're going to take out, $80,000 because of a cash out refi, it might make sense to just have a little bit of a higher interest rate, have to do a little bit of a seasoning period to be able to access essentially like free money. It's not free. You have to pay it, right? But if you have a business that makes sense, you have tenants and whatnot, they're paying down the mortgage. And so you have someone else paying down this mortgage. So it's kind of free to you in that sense. You're not necessarily paying that, but you can take that money and then go buy more real estate. But what I like about a rate and term for me is when it doesn't make sense to have a larger loan and a higher interest rate to take out extra cash. Because what if it's not $80,000? What if really, if you were going to do a cash out refi, the max you'd be able to get just based on where you were on the numbers or whatnot is like $7,000. Really, after all fees, net, everything, you can, cash out refi and put $7,000 in the bank. That's really not, it's really not enough for me to want to do a seasoning period, higher interest rate. So I would rather just do a rate and term. A rate and term, I love those because it basically focuses on just reducing your payment. Because usually rate and terms are done when, interest rates are better than what you have. Or like in this position, you want to buy a property, fix it up, but just literally refinance the debt that's already there so you don't have to wait, 3 months or 6 months. A lot of times lenders will have you wait 6 months before you can do a cash out refi. And I don't want to hold a property for another half a year. If I could buy a property, fix it up, and let's just say 3 weeks, because maybe you're only going to do new floors, light fixtures, some paint, and it's ready to go. And based on how low you bought it, you could refinance that thing in a week or 2 weeks, I mean, amazing. Now you're on a long-term debt. You could, start renting this property out and you have this deal complete and you didn't have to wait 6 months. You didn't have to have a much larger loan and you didn't have to have a higher interest rate. And so anyway, I just wanted to throw this out there. There is a difference between a rate and term refinance and a cash out refi. And based on that information I just gave you, you have to kind of figure out what makes sense for you. I really like rate and terms because it's just quicker. It's just a quick kind of cash out the debt that's already on the property, better terms. You don't have a seasoning period, but there are cases where going through the other part of it, which is the longer waiting seasoning period, the higher interest rate, etc., makes sense because you have access to a large chunk of cash that can accelerate your business, even more. So anyway, hopefully that made sense to you guys. If you have any questions about that, just drop them in the comment below. Remember, guys, I always say in the description, there's a link to my resource guide. In every video I'm posting, you'll see a link to the resource guide. You got to check that out. I mean, it has so many things that can help you in your real estate business. My book that I wrote, I have a local real estate meetup. I live here in the upstate of South Carolina. So that's something in person. I do something for anyone in around the country or the world. I do a Zoom call every Tuesday. That's like Q&A. I have a mentorship opportunity where it's you and I really one-on-one helping you through your journey, all the things that I'm learning and experiencing. I mean, there's just so many resources that I'm providing for you in your business. So just check out that link in the description. But I'll see you guys on the next video.